A few years ago, I released a video that was all about how to break in a pair of boots. It was a pair of Horween Chrome Excel Wolverine 1000 Mile boots, which are pretty easy to break in. As many of you guys noted in the comments, my advice was basically just to wear your boots a bunch. It wasn't super helpful for anyone who was struggling with a heel blister, that's for sure. Also, a lot of people offered their own takes on what they do to break in their boots. Some of the strategies were sound, but I'm gonna be honest with you, many of the methods, they weren't good ideas. You shouldn't take a shower with your boots, and you shouldn't strip the leather with alcohol. Those two things I know. So I decided to break in a pair of some of the toughest boots in the world, the NYX Americana. And then after that, I actually broke in a pair of White's Packer boots. There's a lot of truth in what I said the first time I made the video on breaking in a pair of boots. You just have to wear them a lot. But I've also picked up 10 tips and tricks while breaking these boots in that's gonna help you break in a really tough pair of boots much easier. For a rugged pair of boots like these NYX, you can expect a little bit of pain during the break-in, but you can use a few of these 10 tricks to make the break-in that much faster and that much easier. So let's get on with trick number 1. Okay, so this might seem like a stupid tip, and actually it sort of is, but if you're not a seasoned boot wearer, then you might not know all the options you have for sizing. For a lot of guys getting their first or second pair of boots, if you're coming from the world of sneakers, you should know that there are wide sizes available for boots. Those are E, double E, triple E, sizes like that. They're wider than your standard width. Some of my friends, they have a hard time finding the right fit for their sneakers because they actually have wide feet. One brand like Nike might call for one size, while another brand like Adidas, they're gonna call for a completely different size based on how much room each of them leave for the toe. Generally speaking, you should have about a ½ inch of room at your toes. If you bought a pair of boots that feel really comfortable at the waist or like right in the sides of the boot, but you have an inch or more room at the toes, there's a good chance that you have a wider foot and you would need a wider width. The standard fit for boots is called a D width. If most boots you try on are too snug at the sides, explore the E widths. Your boots should be snug at the sides but not tight, and you should have about a ½ inch of room in the toes. Getting the right size is going to make the break-in period much easier. Stiff leather is the main reason your boots hurt like hell. 90% of breaking in a boot is stretching and softening the leather in those areas where your foot is shaped a little differently. Maybe you have high arches or the ball of your foot is especially wide. The leather's gonna stretch around those areas first. A great way to speed up that process is to wear a thick pair of wool socks. Sure, it might feel a little bit tight, especially in the beginning, but in exaggerating your foot size, you're stretching the leather much faster than by letting nature take its course. I recommend doing this for a few hours around the house before venturing outside for the first time. If you start in the morning, at lunch, you'll know whether or not you need to return the boots. Because you didn't venture outside, they'll still be clean enough to send back. If your feet start to get that pins and needles feeling, they're definitely too tight. If they're not, then you know you're just dealing with a tough break-in period and you'll have to bust out some other tricks. Oh, you didn't see that coming now, did you? When I was breaking into my NYX, I was surprised to find that one day when I wore thinner socks, it was actually the turning point when I could actually wear my boots for a few miles of walking around. At that point, when you're able to put in multiple miles, that's when you really start to accelerate the break-in period. I know tip number 2 is to wear thick wool socks, but I think you should also alternate that out with thinner socks so you leave your foot a little more room to move around and get comfortable. If stiff leather causes the most friction and pain, there are a few drastic measures you can make to soften it up. While I'd never recommend this next method on the upper or the outside of the boot, it's an excellent trick to work in the hard leather heel if that's wreaking havoc on you. Take fine grit sandpaper or even a dryer sheet and you can gently scuff up the inside of the heel. I'm not suggesting you go to town and just grind away at the back of the boot, but a little scuffing is going to expose the leather fibers which will grip onto your sock. As you walk, your heel's going to rub more on the soft cotton or the wool of your sock rather than the hard leather. If you've ever gone out for the night with a new pair of shoes only to end up with hobbling around with raging sore spots on the backs of your heels, this tip is definitely for you. Of course, you can add some leather heel grips as well. Those are already soft, but I would recommend being careful with that because you add a grip that can actually change the fit of the boot, so it's a little, it's a little too fiddly for me. This tip actually comes from you guys in the video comments. It's not something I personally tried, but to me, it makes a lot more sense than taking a shower with your boots or going to a water park wearing your boots or just standing in a bucket. All of which of those ideas, honestly, I've seen those in the video comments. The idea is that you spray the outside of your socks with a few spritzes of water. You don't soak them, you just do enough to get them damp. Then you wear your new boots around the house a bit or take them for a short walk. Moisture and heat are the two things that break in and soften leather the most, so you're basically just adding more moisture to the equation, which can definitely speed the process up. Now, a note of caution on this method, especially if you live in a humid area, if you accidentally add too much moisture, you can get moldy boots, which is both gross and it's more damaging to the leather in the long run. I certainly don't recommend submerging your boots in water or really purposely getting them wet. A lot of boots have fiberboards somewhere in the insole and midsole, and soaking the boots through can just basically immediately weaken that fiberboard, and then all of a sudden the insole, it's breaking apart. But even with a pair of NYX boots that's basically all leather and cork on the inside, the potential to damage the leather, it far outweighs the benefit of a faster break-in. If you're dealing with a hot spot, mine are often in the heel and in the interior of my left foot, you can try adjusting the lacing every few wears. Changing up the lacing will subtly shift the way the boots fit, and it's gonna push and pull the leather differently. That can potentially ease the pressure of the hot spot and can also help break in the leather a little bit faster. I recommend keeping a roll of mole tape in your boot care kit because once a hot spot gets going, there's not a lot you can do but just let it heal before you can really continue to break in your boots. If you're going out for the day with a new pair of boots and you're not sure if they're gonna rub you raw, bring the mole tape with you, and the moment you start to feel a slightest bit of rubbing at your skin, bust out that mole tape and cover up the area. In my experience, mole tape sticks a lot better than band-aids, but a band-aid can also work in a pinch. I think moleskin, it's a lot easier to use, so it's definitely my first choice. You can also preemptively tape your heels and any other hotspot area you usually encounter when you're wearing a new pair of boots. I usually don't do that because I like to know if my boots are actually causing a hot spot, so I never get caught off guard if I just don't put on some mole tape. So I like to know, is there gonna be a hot spot here? And if I start to feel it, then boom, that's when I go with the mole tape. The key here is just to make sure your feet are always good to walk for a few miles, because wearing your boots often, it is still the best way to break them in. When I was breaking in my Knicks, I would try to wear them every single day for at least an hour or two, even if I didn't have to go do anything. This helped to get the boots started, but the process actually sped up once I started leaving a day in between wears and popping in a pair of cedar shoe trees. I do recommend a standard cedar shoe tree for this. They actually absorb some of the moisture from the leather, which is particularly helpful if you're wearing your boots in the summer a lot, which I was. They also help freshen the smell of the leather, which doesn't do anything for the break-in, but it's just good. It's a good thing. My first thought was that wearing the boots every day would be the fastest way to break them in, but actually giving the boots a day of rest in between wears not only allows the leather to relax a little bit more, but on top of that, it also allows your foot to heal so you can wear your boots the next time for longer. Massaging the leather is a great way to break it in if you're not doing anything else, you're just sitting on the couch and you want to break in your boots as fast as possible. You can try bending the toe and heel around like this. I think there's a limit to how much you want to actually do this because you really need your boot to bend in the areas your foot naturally bends, not so much where it's easiest to bend in half with your hands. But for the heel, folding the leather over and over, rubbing it back and forth, kind of like this, you know, something like that, that's gonna soften up the leather considerably. If the ball of your foot tends to experience a lot of friction, then you can also rub that area, both on the inside and the outside. So if I'm just doing this, that is also gonna help soften up the leather in those particularly troubling areas. If it's early days with your boots and you have a long workday ahead of you, bring a pair of comfortable sneakers or old broken in boots with you. The absolute worst thing you can do for your break-in is to push your feet so far that you create a blister or a raw spot. That's just gonna make it so you can't wear your boots for several days, and when you're not wearing them, you're not breaking them in. I think with those 10 tips, your break-in's gonna be pretty smooth, even for a heavy-duty pair of boots like Knicks or Whites. But here are a few other things you could try if you're 2 weeks in and you're starting to lose the faith. I actually like to not condition my more rugged boots because I like the way the leather ages in patinas. So I still haven't conditioned the leather on my Knicks boots, and I don't really plan on doing it anytime soon. Maybe in a few years I will, but using something like Venetian leather balm or leather honey, that is gonna soften up the leather on these boots, which in turn makes it easier to break in. For a lot of other people, this is a top tip in breaking in a pair of boots, but for whatever reason, I don't know what it's the phase I'm in, I'm not conditioning the leather. I like the way it ages. It just looks good, I think, in my opinion, when I don't condition leather, at least for rugged boots. I'm almost certainly gonna change my mind on that in a few months, but that's where I'm at right now. You can try a shoe stretching device, which looks similar to a shoe tree, but you actually add these little metal nubbins onto it that they actually stretch certain areas. A shoe stretcher is gonna stretch the leather out and it's gonna give you more room for your foot. I see this more as an option if you've accidentally gotten a size that's slightly too small for you, but sometimes you don't have an option to return your boots, so a shoe stretcher is kind of like a last resort type move. There are leather softeners and leather relaxers that's gonna make it a lot easier to stretch out that leather, either with a shoe stretcher or just by stuffing the boot with newspaper or cloth. You can spray down the upper and stuff some old t-shirts in your boot, and that will stretch out the leather a decent amount. Honestly, I don't recommend this method if you can avoid it because the chemicals in the leather relaxer, they're not great for the longevity of the boot. If you're getting something like a $600 pair of Knicks that's built for durability and has excellent quality leather, I wanna protect that as much as possible. But if you absolutely need to get your boots stretched out as much as possible, then using a leather relaxing spray is the way to go. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up and also hit the subscribe button down below. If you have a method of breaking in your boots that I didn't mention here, please leave me a comment down below. Let me know what it is so we can kind of get a list going where everyone can kind of see everyone's crazy ideas. And if you're one of the people who takes a shower with your boots, more power to you. You can check out some other videos popping up right here for more boot tips and boot reviews. And until next time, put your best boot forward.